That's right, it's your boy. Today, we are creating the ultimate, the official Army of the Dead Necromancer Death Knight in Baldur's Gate 3. Right off the bat, to let you guys know, this build will eventually have 3 different paths to take. Option A being a mix of melee and caster with 3 feats, option B being more melee focused, and option C being full-on caster with smites as secondaries, which is my personal preferred way to play this build. I will be referencing my previous builds, the Vengeance Paladin and the original Death Knight, as this build is a spin-off of those, and I recommend being level 7 and ready to respec before starting this build. Links are in the description, of course. This is going to be a bit different than my usual build videos, and that's just simply due to the nature of this build specifically and the fact that half of it is similar to its 2 predecessors. I would also like to preface this video by stating the importance of the Necromancy of Thay, as it gives you a free 4 Fiend summon in Act 3. I won't mention this but a couple more times, so make sure you take note of it. Also, I've come up with a Spore Druid Death Knight, which I will dub the Fungal Knight, so be on the lookout for that in the future. It must be stated that you cannot start raising undead on your own until you unlock level 3 spells, which is at caster level 5. With that being said, I highly recommend you refer to my original Vengeance Paladin build just mentioned for the first 6 levels, as this build's theme does not come online until level 7. However, that is only if you want the necromancy part of the build as early as possible. Otherwise, you could simply level up Paladin and Oathbreak for the control undead spell, and maybe up to 5 for extra attack, and then go into Wizard. I highly recommend going for the early necromancy route so you can make the most of it during Act 2, which is a blast and is exactly the route that I will be describing in this video. As always, pick any race, but real ones know human is the only correct choice. Your ability points are going to entirely depend on how you want to play this version of the Death Knight. Harkening back to the options I mentioned earlier, do you want to feel like a true commander, sit back and obliterate everyone with spells while your minions get nasty? Or do you want to be more melee oriented in the middle of battle alongside your undead? For the purposes of this video, and because my last Death Knight was an absolute unit, I'll be showcasing and mainly talking about the option C version, the true Army of the Dead Death Knight, prioritizing magic over melee while the minions do minion stuff. So officially getting into our stats, we'll set strength to 16, though you could drop this to 14 in favor of dex, because dex is going to be our sacrificing stat. I say this because we will be increasing initiative through gear, and you'll have to sacrifice either strength, intelligence, charisma, or a mix of those to raise your dex. Constitution at 13 is just fine, setting up the resilience feat later and allowing us to set our intelligence to 17 in preparation for the Hag's Hair. Wisdom at 8 and charisma at 12. Alternatively, you could leave intelligence at 16 and have your dex at 10 or 12 if you also lowered strength or charisma. If you can't get the Hag's Hair, don't worry, you'll do just fine with 18 intelligence in the final build. This is what I will be doing for my build, as I already used the Hag's Hair for charisma on the character you're seeing in these clips, but do note, maxing your intelligence at 20 is recommended to make the most of your spells. Ignoring the Hag's Hair, my final build stats came out to 16 strength, 12 dex, 14 constitution, 18 intelligence, 8 wisdom, and 10 charisma. Level 1. Your first level is Paladin, yada yada, and we just went over the starting stats, so I'm going to immediately move on to level 2 and 3. Here we quickly multi-class into Wizard for 5 levels. For our 3 cantrips, we absolutely have to take Bone Chill, Poison Spray, and Ray of Frost for ultimate Death Knight flavor. Don't ignore your Ray of Frost either, as it is one of the best cantrips, and make sure to look for gear that mentions the chilled condition and others that enhance your cold spells. More on that in a bit. At level 2 Wizard, select Necromancy and unlock Grim Harvest. This is a passive that simply heals the Death Knight whenever he kills an enemy with a spell for twice the spell's level and thrice if it was a Necromancy spell. With these first 2 levels in a Wizard, we have 8 level 1 spells to learn. For Death Knight themed spells, consider Ray of Sickness, which is a must in my opinion, Burning Hands, Ice Knife of course, and False Life. Chromatic Orb, Fog Cloud, and Grease fall somewhere between thematic and just normal, but some other spells to consider are Longstrider, one of the best buffs in the game and doesn't use a spell slot when cast out of combat, Magic Missile, which synergizes particularly well with Grim Harvest, as I tend to use this spell to finish finish enemies with low HP, and for this one I'm gonna recommend Find Familiar because for some reason I just see this Death Knight walking around with his little crow buddy. Level 4 and 5. For our next 2 wizard levels, you'll be able to learn 4 level 2 spells, a cantrip, and you'll gain your first feat. Now because I made darkness a major factor of the last build, I'm not going to focus on that for this one, although do take note, taking darkness and using any of the gear that gives you blind immunity is going to be powerful on basically any character. Also, if you plan to take Paladin to 5, don't take Crown of Madness unless you really want it because you'll unlock it later within Oathbreaker along with darkness, but we'll talk about those last levels in just a bit. With that being said, some thematic level 2 spells to consider are Scorching Ray, Melf's Acid Arrow, Ray of Enfeeblement, and Blind. The only non-thematic level 2 spell I'll recommend is Misty Step, but by this time you should have a Misty Step scroll, so just learn it that way. For the cantrip, I like Acid Splash just to make the Death Knight more disgusting. For your feat, take Ability Improvement to raise your intelligence to 19 or 20 if you've already attained the Hag's Hair. There will actually be some concentration spells that really fit this Death Knight, which is why I left our Constitution at 13. Just in case you want to have more success with those spells, you can easily take Resilience Constitution and gain proficiency in its saving throws. Take note, we will also have advantage on concentration saves through gear, level 6 and 7. So moving on with 2 more levels into Wizard, we'll unlock 4 level 3 spells to learn and some more Necromancy. Thematic level 3 Death Knight spells to consider are Vampiric Touch, which is basically a necessity for theme and can be abused considering our Grim Harvest passive, Stinking Cloud, which I think deserves more credit because not only is it gross, it literally prevents creatures from doing anything until they escape it, Fireball of course, Fear, Bestow Curse plus power word kill on a major Act 3 boss, just a thought, and don't worry about Animate Dead, you'll unlock that for free at level 7 Wizard 6 with the Undead Thralls buff, which gives you an always prepared Animate Dead, allows you to summon an extra undead whenever you use it, and also gives your summons bonus HP equal to your wisdom level and bonus damage equal to your proficiency bonus. I know I'll be crucified in the comments if I don't mention haste here, but yes, it is true, haste is a level 3 spell and you can learn it here as well, although I do recommend having another party member haste your Death Knight if at all. Glyph of Warding is an honorable mention just because it's one of my favorite spells, it's one of the best, and I don't care if I recommend it in every build. I ended up taking Vampiric Touch, Stinking Cloud, Fireball, and Fear in that order. Level 8. At level 8, we hop back into Oathbreaker, unlocking all of our smites again, our fighting style, and a level 4 spell slot, which you can now use to cast Skeleton Squad or Zombie Battalion, which are versions of your Animate Dead spell that raise 3 undead instead of 1 or 2. Typically, you would only be raising 3 by upcasting to level 4, but with the Undead Thralls buff, you immediately get access to 4 undead, which is absolutely atrocious. For your fighting style, take Great Weapon if you prefer to melee more, or take Defense as it increases your AC by 1, making you just a bit harder to hit, which means easier to keep concentration. I tend to prepare Command and Wrathful Smite to fit the theme. Level 9. At level 9, we switch back over to Wizard, raising that to level 7 and giving us 2 level 4 spells to learn. Here you could take Conjure Elemental, but the Death Knight is satisfied with his undead, plus we will have the Macabre Fiend soon as well, seeing as how we're approaching Act 3 by this point, and with that being said, Blight is a must-have for the Death Knight with a disgusting 8d8 necrotic damage and Ice Storm for our second spell. Fire Shield is another good option, but is probably better for melee focused. Level 10 through 12. At level 10, I present to you a fork in the road, a divergent path with 3 different routes to take. Option A, Wizard 8, Oathbreaker 4, the only option giving you 3 feats, sacrificing extra attack in the Oathbreaker's Darkness and Crown of Madness spells. With this, you'll gain 2 level 4 spells to learn, and you can take any of the spells we've mentioned so far, 1 level 4 spell slot, 2 level 5 spell slots, and the Oathbreaker's Channel Divinity abilities alongside Hellish Rebuke and Inflict Wounds, the latter being particularly useful considering Grim Harvest. 3 feats means we can not only take Resilience Constitution, but we can also take Alert as well, so we can make our turn much earlier, though you can still get some decent initiative bonus through gear, which would help make up for having only 2 feats in the next 2 options. Remember that dual wield is always an option to reap the benefits of 2 staves. Option B would be similar to option A. This one leaves Wizard at 7 and takes Oathbreaker to 5. This would see you gain the same 1 level 4 spell slot, but only gain 1 level 5 spell slot as well. You also lose out on your 3rd feat, however you do end up with the Oathbreaker level 5 spells being Crown of Madness and Darkness, alongside extra attack, which alone can be worth the sacrifice to some people and is most likely the option you'll take if you're playing a more melee focused Death Knight. Option C sees us completely abandoning Oathbreaker at level 2 and leveling Wizard all the way to 10. With this, you are fully focused on being the commander of your army, unleashing your disgusting power and only using your smites as secondary. This route sees you gaining a cantrip, which I like Blade Ward, especially with the quick spell gloves, 1 level 4 spell slot as usual, 2 level 5 spell slots, and 1 level 6 spell slot for heavy upcasting or learning any level 6 spells through scrolls, especially Circle of Death, which you've seen used a few times in clips throughout this video. You also unlock the final subclass feature of Necromancy with Inert to Undeath. This gives you necrotic resistance, having any necrotic damage you might take, and makes it so your maximum hit points cannot be reduced. For level 5 Death Knight spells, I can see Planar Binding or Dominate Person. I think those fit very well thematically, as the Death Knight is so commanding and powerful at this point, people and demons alike fall under his control. Otherwise, for more destructive abilities, you have to take Cloud Kill or even consider Cone of Cold. Of course, Conjure Elemental is always fun. I've tried all 3 options, and option C is probably my favorite, so it's the one I will recommend the most, followed by option A and then option B. For the final build, this is the complete list of spells I think are thematic to the Death Knight, and others I think are just useful enough that they need to be mentioned. As you can see, this is one of those builds where you really can't go wrong any which way you cut it, and I can see people wanting to play this specific build in different ways, which is why I tried to offer some varying options. I'm eager to hear everyone's thoughts in the comments, and definitely let me know how you would make the build better, as there is always room for improvement, and some of you guys come up with stuff I've never even thought of before, and it's one of the things that makes these videos so much fun for me. Gear. Obviously, being a Death Knight, I'm gonna recommend all the same gear from the previous build, especially if you opted for a more melee focused build, but also some new gear to enhance our casting capabilities. First things first, you can completely drop your 2-hander for a staff, as many of them come with some insane buffs and would be much more useful to this build than any 2-hander. Going this route, I would also recommend the use of a shield for the same reason, along with raising your AC. I'm gonna be honest guys, there's so many combinations you can make because the Death Knight has various avenues of destruction, whether it be poison, fire, cold, or anything else. With that being said, here is a quick overview of some gear that I'll recommend, but just before that, if you'd like me to go further into detail, let me know in the comments and I will make a full video dedicated to just that, as this video would be twice as long if I were to do so, and it would basically be 2 different topics at that point anyways. For example, Mourning Frost inflicts chilled when you deal cold damage, which gives you double cold damage on that target. Pair that with the Snowburst ring, which creates circles of ice around targets, and suddenly you're a busted Frost DK with an army of undead. How could I forget to mention the Winter's Clutches gloves and the Cold Brim hat, inflicting encrusted with frost whenever you deal cold damage, which gives them disadvantage on dex saving throws, which is their ability to dodge your area of effect spells. On top of that, it can stack and cause them to become frozen, steal Cazador's staff, whoa, and gain a free blight use once a day, more free healing, and gain a +1 bonus to spell save DC and attack rolls. Add Kethric's shield to that, and now it's a +2 for both. Throw the Fistbreaker helm on, and now it's a 3 for the DC, and you get a +1 to initiative, or even Hood of the Weave for a total +4 spell save DC and attack rolls. I mean, there's so many options. And I could go on, but I digress. You can screenshot these for future reference, and I will briefly list them off. Don't forget to check out the gear section of my original Death Knight video as well. Fistbreaker helm, Hood of the Weave, Gibbous of the Worshipful Servant for advantage on concentration saving throws, throws, Circle of Bones, which I mentioned in the previous video, but it's especially good for this build, having a lot of damage that your summons take with the Undead Ward aura. Cloak of Displacement, help keep concentration. Flesh Melter Cloak is particularly RP friendly. Icarus Gloves or Icorus Gloves deliver noxious fumes when you inflict acid damage. Quickspell Gloves, Winter's Clutches Gloves, Hoarfrost Boots or maybe Varsht Cuckoo, Snowburst Ring, Poisoner's Ring. The Staff of Cherished Necromancy is a perfect staff to use at least once per day, as it comes with the Life Essence ability. After you kill an enemy, you gain this condition and can spend it to cast a Necromancy spell without expending a spell slot. So you could cast Cloud Kill or something ridiculous for free. On top of this, if you leave it equipped, creatures have disadvantage on saving throws against your Necromancy spells. Currently, you can continue to cast Necromancy spells for free at will as long as you keep enabling the toggle passive. This may be patched out in the future, but oddly enough, I believe it was patched in during patch 4. Something to note, and something that makes this staff actually insane and possibly one of the most busted weapons in the entire game. Finally, I'll recommend the Crypt Lord Ring, which gives you Create Undead, the much stronger version of Animate Undead that gives you ghouls. I know this guide was a bit different than usual, but this build almost demanded to be explained in its own way, and I do thoroughly hope you enjoyed. If you liked the build or found the video helpful in any way, make sure to subscribe for the next one and maybe consider joining us on the live streams. And I just want to give a shout out to everyone who has supported me so far, shown love, and been a part of the channel. Purge Evil reached over 1,000 subs 2 days after Thanksgiving and is now around 1,300 at the time of recording this video. I truly appreciate each and every one of you, and I just want to say thank you for stopping by, and until next time, Purge Evil.
Yeah, crown in my palm, but I ain't put it on. Yeah, crown in my palm, but I ain't put it on. Yeah, crown in my palm, but I ain't put it on. Yeah, crown in my palm, but I ain't put it on. Yeah.